When I was planning to propose to my wife, Kristin, well, to be wife, Kristin, um, I had this plan to take her out to dinner. It was going to be a surprise. It was a surprise. Although she was expecting that we would get engaged in December. And I took her out to dinner, and the whole night began to unfold in her eyes even as this is probably going to be the night. But as it continued, it wasn't time yet, and as we were driving home from dinner, not sure what's going on in her mind at the moment, I pulled over off the side of the road, and I looked over at her and I said, "Kristin, I have something in my pocket that I'd like you to put on." And she kind of got this look, and so I reached in my pocket and I pulled out a bandana. And I pulled this bandana out, and she's like, "Okay." So I tie the bandana around her eyes. Now she's blindfolded. So I continue to drive a few more miles, and we pull in to the parking lot of the church that I was working at the time as a pastor. And I had this plan to be alone in the sanctuary. It was all set up with candles and the whole deal, and I was going to give her her Christmas gift and then also propose to her. And I had this, roses and the whole thing. And I pulled up, and I immediately knew something was wrong because there were all these cars in the parking lot. And it was my oversight completely, but I forgot that because Christmas was 3 weeks away, that the choir was having extra rehearsals that they normally didn't have on this night of the week. So I pull in and I pretend nothing's wrong. I say, "Wait right here," and I run in. And I just go, "Oh my gosh, they're right in the middle of rehearsal." And I find out how much longer they've got, about 20 more minutes of rehearsal. So I'm thinking, all right, we can do this. And I run back out into the car and I say, "All right, we're off." Like this was part of the plan. And I drive her around for the next about the next 15 minutes, and having a good time pretending this is right what we're supposed to be doing. We get back to the church, and the choir rehearsal is over, but now the organist was there wanting to work on his pieces of music. And I had walked Kristin in the back of the church, and she was sort of waiting back there while I was sort of doing this back and forth thing like you'd see in a comedy movie. And I felt horrible because I didn't want to boot Raymond out of the sanctuary and say, "You got to get out of here. I have plans for tonight." Yet this was my proposal, and I'm thinking, this is how I want to do it. And I don't want to just settle for something less than this, because I had the thought in my mind, forget the sanctuary. We'll just do this down the hall in this little social hall that we had, completely less romantic and less special. But I'm panicking, and so finally I just, it was back and forth about 2 times, and finally I just went in and I asked Raymond, because this is not my personality, I asked him if he would, I told him what was going on, and he was completely accommodating, very helpful. And so anyway, long story short, Raymond left, and I brought Kristin in, and it went just as planned, and it was wonderful, and I proposed to her, and she said yes, which is always good. And so we got engaged. Now, there's a lot of details that I left out there at the end, but when I think back on that night, I thought about how easily I could have given up on my original plan of how I wanted to propose to Kristin, and I almost did. But instead of doing that, I made some adjustments and I persevered. And what that makes me think about is how often in life we're faced with situations where we can either, one, we can passively accept the situation that we find ourselves in and say, well, there's nothing I can do about it. Or we can actively say, no, I am going to do something about this. I'm going to make some adjustments. I'm going to make this happen. And I'm going to go forward so that I get to the place where I want to be, the place that I desire, my preferred future. And that is a lot of what we do in coaching when we work with clients, saying this is where you want to be, and we do need to make some adjustments, but we can do this, and you can get there.